don't know. I just look like I'm going to a show. I guess I get in.
It's really nice to see you again. Thanks for coming to the house, by the way.
Of course.
What a pleasure.
Of course. Am I close enough?
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And last time I interviewed you was 2002. You were coming on the dance record.
Oh, my gosh. On
Toronto.
Modulate. So, yeah, full circle conversation.
At the Phoenix. And since then, you've incorporated some of new stuff and some familiar sounds into your work. And I just wondered if back then, deep inside your head, because I was reading the interviews, and I remember interviewing you thinking, you don't have to play guitars because you've got a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. But I wondered if deep in your head, if you just knew, I can do this better than most people. So
the club kind of music, electronic music, or just
this stuff now, like on this new record,
rock stuff now? Yeah. I think, for me, from the beginning to, from 79 through 1998, I mean, it was sort of like, that was like this linear thing, Workbook was a little bit of a departure from the Husker sound, but Sugar was sort of back to it. But it was just, by 1998, there was like so many sort of pale imitations. And, that music was really important in the 80s. Yeah. What
culturally?
Yeah, what hardcore punk was. In the U.S., in Canada. Husker's first stuff was, 6 Nights at the Calgarian.
Amazing.
And Ken Lester putting us up in Vancouver, in 81 with DOA. So,
this place respected you.
Yeah, and it was, for people that weren't around then or they don't understand what that idea was, it was really, we were all going to be excluded. We had no voice. Late 70s was, sort of this big, bloated AOR rock thing. Everybody had private jets and everybody had drugs and everybody had guns and, and we're just like these punk rock bands with like $20, and a couple of instruments to rub together to start a fire.
Right.
That's about it. So everybody just helped everybody out. Bands would come to Minneapolis, Huskers would put them up, then we'd get Ken's number, we get, Laurie's number, we get, all the people and just, so you do this thing and it was, it was a big cultural thing.
And so when by the late 90s, or even the late 80s into the 90s, when it, as you said, felt disconnected perhaps from that, did you think I didn't want to participate?
I think there's a couple things going on. I think musically I just wanted to, I wanted to look for other things to do. In 98, I was in New York City, and, the club music was really big at the time, the Twilo and all, all of that stuff was going on. Everywhere that I went in my sort of new gay West Village Chelsea life, I was hearing club music. And it just got in my head, and I'm like, okay, so I should follow this, because this is the soundtrack, and, I always try to tell people environment is key to the making of the music.
It's also really exciting and really different. Like, even though Kraftwerk and artists like that have been doing something, it was by the mid to late 90s, it had been in people's heads for out of Detroit for a while in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So it was starting to branch off into subgenres. And it was just the most exciting place for music, wasn't it?
Yeah, and all this, all the stuff coming out of Paris, all the Roulet and Cry de Mort, the whole Daft Punk, Phoenix, all of that, that whole scene as well was just. And then you had labels like More Music, all the things like Styrofoam and Lollipuna, and the No Twist, who were sort of towing in between the line between electronic and rock, which I thought was real cool. So I was, listening to a lot of that stuff and sort of went down that road. And, then, within a year of putting out Modulate, then we had, Postal Service and, all of a sudden, ta-da, electronica incorporated into American indie rock.
Yeah.
So, again, like I remember the guy from Virgin Records after I got dropped after Black Sheets of Rain, I think. In 1991, he's like, "Oh man, bad timing for you. 6 months later, you'd have been Pearl Jam."
Someone, don't you fucking hate that shit?
I laugh.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, yeah, I'm try to stay a little bit ahead if I can.
And also, like, bad timing for you, because 6 months, you held on for 6 months, and you could have been the guy that had me.
Or if Sugar hadn't been, if Teen Spirit hadn't happened, then maybe Sugar wouldn't have happened. I don't know. Right. It's also weird.
It is. And so this thing here, to get to this record, it's a really, really great record.
Thank you.
I've heard the word happy or positive ascribed to it. Is that accurate for you?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, it is called Sunshine Rock, so.
Yeah, I did writing with purpose towards optimism. Yeah. this decade has been really fun for me, with the autobiography and then the Sugar reissues in 2012, and then 4 new albums. This being the 4th with John Worster, my drummer, Jason Ardisi, my bass player, Bo Sorensen, our engineer. The last 2 records were pretty heavy. I lost my dad before Beauty and Ruin. I lost my mom before Patch the Sky. So that. Again, it was just weighing on me as I was writing.
Right.
And this time around, I'm like, come on, I got to give myself a break here. So, writing with purpose towards optimism. To me, it's a 3-act play. The middle, Act 2 is sort of dark and turns inward, but we start bright and we end bright. So that's for 2 out of 3 is pretty good.
Is it? Well, the dark ones are really good too. Is it? So you subscribe to the idea that if you have to put these positive things into your subconscious and it will manifest itself inside you in positive ways?
Yes, it's sort of like being on a diet.
Yeah.
You put the Post-its on the fridge. It's literally like that.
Have you have done that?
Right happy.
Right.
Yeah. And when the the title track came to me, it was like, oh, this is my tent pole.
Right.
Now I know how to drape the fabric and nail it down around the edges and make this nice thing I can be inside. It was cool.
In the book, you tell some stories about your childhood, which are made. The grocery store, the Malone Street, was that in Malone?
Yeah, it was in Malone.
So that store is at the end of there's residential stuff all around there, right?
Yeah, it's a small town of about 5,000 people. There was I lived on a residential street. It was a little sort of like a sort of like a Dobie Gillis kind of thing,
right.
Mom and pop grocery.
I pulled up because I was really curious about it. I pulled up Elbow Street on Google Maps.
Oh, cool.
Like this here.
Yeah.
Is that the spot?
That's the spot, 23 Elbow Street. Yeah.
So right on the corner.
Yeah, somebody bought that and did a whole bunch of crazy stuff to it. But yeah, it's at the bottom. There's like a hill behind it.
Uh-huh.
And then it goes down and there's a river. And there's probably is it like the Salmon River? Or there's a little river brookie kind of thing.
And there was a butcher around there too, or a meat packers or something?
Yeah, across the river on the Catherine Street side, I think there was a...
Was it Glazer's, what it was called?
Yeah, Glazer's, where they made the hot dogs, and there was the True Stitch factory where they made the moccasins, and my dog used to... You remember those fluffy moccasins?
Yeah.
They dye the fake fur and all that? Yeah, my dog used to eat those all the time. It's pretty gross.
It's an America that you used to hear about in song, but you don't hear about it in song anymore.
No.
America has become... certainly, as people who listen, and I live there part of the year, but the music represents an urban America or a certainly music of youth, wildly glossy, aspirational view of America.
Yeah, I think there's, as America has become more, artistically has become way more inclusive. Mm-hmm. More multicultural as far as what people can tolerate in music, where it's not just blues-based rock.
That's right.
Now we're into a new iteration of expression. And then you've also got technology where kids are working at home, alone, or together, or by Dropbox or whatever.
Right.
It's
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there is, when I listen to a lot of the new music, I hear things, like Juice WRLD, stuff like that. And those lyrics are heavy. They're as heavy as what I was writing when I was a kid.
You're talking about internal politics and emotional.
Yeah, just, sort of the depressive, a lot of that depressive state, depressive drugs, this whole new sort of Adderall, Xanax-y kind of thing that, I guess thank God for the internet for that. But, if people need to get drugs, they can just order them. So I think a lot of that informs the music too. I mean, there's also the sort of the, reminiscent of the 2000s, sort of the Disney-fied,
right.
TV pop, that always confuses me. I don't know where those people come from, and I don't know where they end up.
It's strange. There's like a factory. I think the only difference, well, there's lots of differences, but, and again, I like a lot of some of the new stuff that comes out. It's just that with you guys musically and with you, even what you do now, it doesn't look like you're trying to be inside. You're not trying to be in the system.
No, I prefer not to be in the system.
Right.
I don't like any systems really.
Right. And this independent spirit is a really important part of who you are.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it really goes back to the late 70s, when you are just trying to scrap together enough to get a place to play.
Yeah.
And when you get into I guess in a way you're getting into, or you're building a system of like-minded people who have nothing, and you just share what little bit you have, and you can sort of go around North America. It's almost like being a preacher. You just press up some 7-inch singles, and there's your gas money. I mean, that was really how it was for everybody back then.
I was talking to Vinny Stigma from Agnostic Front about the early days, and he was saying that they had this worldview that you were welcome, but we didn't have to join.
Yep.
And that was a really important part of why the 80s created the music it did. And I think partly is in the 70s, the parenting was so different.
Yes, perhaps, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 58, so I was born in 60, and a lot of my, my growing up was that late 60s through mid 70s. Kind of, that mentality. And it was small town America. It wasn't, I think suburban existence was very different than the rural existence I had.
Right.
But, I mean, I felt like I got raised sort of traditionally, sort of messed up, but,
Well, you detail it in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, lots of people have challenging relationships and even abusive relationships with a parent, but you were counting the story of your father pressing record on the tape machine behind a couch or a book.
Yeah, I put it behind his chair,
Yeah, before he'd leave.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that leaves a mark for a lot of people.
Yep.
What was it like to write that?
Yeah, it just is.
Yeah.
I felt, both my parents had passed, but they both were alive when the book was published, which I, let them know. Just say, hey, this is my story.
Right.
And I'm sticking to it.
How'd they feel about that?
I loved my parents, and we had a great relationship, through all of it. I mean, they're my parent. They were my parents.
Right.
You can't.
Did you, as you got older, because you have a strong facility for words, were you able to communicate to them as you got older how you felt about the experiences?
They were from that old generation.
So
it's trying to explain it only makes it worse. It's just even trying to explain sexuality or lifestyles. When your parents are born in the 20s or it's 1920s. In case this is an evergreen production.
We hope it is, Bob.
I think it will be.
Are you like that? Do you have characteristics like that in you? Traits like that?
What, like my folks?
Well, just the idea that, over-explaining or communicating things can make it worse, and you just sort of let it be.
With parents, I just learned that it was, the more I tried, the less it made sense to them. Right. So with myself, it's one of my big fears is always, I think any of us have a part of us that we don't want to be misunderstood. Mm-hmm. We try to explain ourselves the best we can, but no. I mean, as far as like, hereditary traits or, environmental traits from my parents, I try to, especially with my dad, he was, again, from that era, the language was different. The colors applied to people and words were very different. So, and I quickly learned when I got to college that, whoa, okay.
Did you have to shed mindsets to grow?
Oh, yeah. Of course. 17, everything was like, wow, okay. This is a whole new environment. I'm at this liberal arts college in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm this kid that lucked into an underprivileged scholarship, and now, I live in a dorm with people from all over the world, not all over upstate New York.
Well, it even goes back to the conversation we were having about the government's helping with clubs in Berlin. It's that if governments or systems are in place to protect people and give people who wouldn't otherwise have opportunities, who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
Like the real impact.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was, for me, it was, it was an incredible gift. It was a ticket out of what would have been a dead end life for me. Malone, New York was a great place to grow up, but there wasn't a lot of room to grow in the town.
Music was a part of your life, your whole life. But
immediately.
When you get to Minnesota, do you feel like I can be anything now?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I went with purpose. I used to go, when I was in high school, I used to read Rock Scene magazine, and I would read about all the metal bands, and then I would read about these punk bands, and I would start to go buy these records by these punk rock bands. Whether it was the Ramones or the Buzzcocks or the Vile Tones.
Legends of it.
Hey, Steven. that was real important to me. And I had found out about a band from Minnesota called the Suicide Commandos. And I bought their album in Burlington, Vermont, before I moved out to St. Paul to go to school. Mm-hmm. And it turned out the first weekend I got there was one of their last shows. So I quickly got a fake ID and went down to the punk rock club, the Longhorn, to see the Suicide Commandos.
What was your fake ID name? Do you remember?
Oh, it was a real name.
It was real name?
I just fudged my date of birth. It was like my cafeteria card, So they were like, it's a punk rock club. They're just like, go on.
We interviewed the Beastie Boys in the fall, and a huge part of their story was being underage, getting into these clubs in New York to be inspired. And again, it goes back to this idea that if you don't give kids access to things, you're really putting them behind the eight ball to start. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the club bouncer didn't give a shit. Nowadays, it's a fucking Twitter trend, and it's the end of the world.
Yep. And now they have access to everything at home, so people don't need to go out as much to understand. If they're looking for that, Celtic, dulcimer death metal band, they're going to find those other six people real quick.
That's right. But I think it's something really interesting about getting up in the wintertime, putting your jacket on, and going to a bar, waiting in line to get in, getting inside, and seeing who else is there. Yeah,
that's the experience. People should never let go of that. That's the community part.
Right.
The experience, the volume, the smell, the bumping against people, running into people you don't know, learning things. All that stuff was real key. And so, I jumped in head first.
Right.
When I got to St. Paul, it was like, oh, wow, there's a whole new world here.
When did you ever get a sense that you were doing something that was really, really important? I mean, I'm 46, so I remember very clearly when your records came out and how it changed so many of our trajectory because we loved metal. And we loved punk.
Yep.
And then there was this thing that came kind of in the middle.
Yep.
It was dissonant.
Yep.
But it was still revolutionary. Like, what the fuck is going on in Minnesota?
Yeah. What do they got up there?
When did you get that sense? Did you ever get that sense?
It became clear after a number of years. But I think, the first 5 years of the band, we were pretty cocksure.
Yeah.
We sort of knew we were good. We played with other bands. We play with some of these Oi bands that would come over from UK and I'd have their singles. And I think, oh, they're really good. And then you see them and just go, God, they're terrible. They don't really know what they're doing at all.
No.
We just smoke them every night. So then we'd start playing with really good bands, like DOA or Subhumans or Dead Kennedys, and then later Black Flag, Minutemen, Meat Puppets. And when they become your peers and you see other people who are working at that higher level, then you go, oh, okay, we're all doing pretty good stuff. But I think, specifically, I think when it really hit, and it was a blessing and a curse was, I think it was 1985, 86 maybe, when Village Voice does their year end.
Yeah.
And Huskers had 2 of the top 10 albums that year. It was like Springsteen, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Husker Du, something to Husker Du.
There's some guy, some woman, some man inside that editorial department who's like, these records. These are the records, right?
Yeah, well, that was the critics, all the national critics, that, year-end wrap-up poll. And I think at that point we were like, oh, okay, now everybody's watching.
Yeah.
And, that was incredible validation, but I think it was also, in retrospect, it was probably the beginning of the end, because then it was self-conscious and that pressure starts.
And everybody in the band's going to handle that differently.
Yep. Everybody handles it differently. And I think everybody just goes to their primary, whatever their primary trait is, whether it's me being more, quitting drinking and being even more hyper-focused on micromanaging everything, or whether it was, Greg getting married, moving to Red Wing and opening a record store, or, and Grant wanting to work with other people and drifting away and doing his thing. It's sort of all bands end that way, but I think it was exacerbated by the microscope being on us.
We have this romantic notion that these bands that we love have to be together because it's a thing, but at the end of the day, maybe that's the construct, and this power that you have, this ability to reach people, you shouldn't have it forever. You should only have it with that collection of guys for this long.
Yeah, it's all about place and time, and it's funny in all of those intervening, all the years from the breakup to Grant's passing, this idea that, when are they going to get together? When are they going to? We never wanted to get back together. We could get back together and have lunch.
Were you in touch?
And talk, yeah.
Yeah.
You get back together and talk about business and do work, but to get together and try to recreate your 20s, stuff is place and time. It really belongs where it's made. You know?
You're an introspective guy, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
And self-aware, clearly.
Yeah, too much.
So if that story is true, that when you were doing business for the band through legal proxy, through lawyers, did you ever have a moment and think, this is fucking weird that we have to do this through lawyers?
No.
No?
No, because if you do it direct, then everything just starts up again.
Interesting.
You know, I mean, I as soon, like those last 5 years of, you know, the whole sort of trying to approach this box set that came out, you know, it's like all it takes is one thing, and it's just like, God damn it, everybody's doing this again. You know, I'm doing it again. Right. Why am I acting like this again?
But see, on this, and then you listen to this new stuff, and I can hear the guitars and I can hear the thing, but it's a completely different experience for you.
Yeah.
So this is fun.
Yeah. All of it's fun. I mean, putting the box together is great. Putting Sunshine Rock, the album, together was really, really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, again, once I started to see the brightness, and then when I realized, you know, 2 weeks before basic tracks, I should get an orchestra, you know, and I should orchestrate 5 or 6 songs. And, you know, deciding that at the last minute is like, that's fun.
Yeah. And being able to do it.
Yeah. And it was sort of in a panic, but it turned out great. Yeah.
When did the beginning of finding the happiness start, like, for you? Did you read a book? Did you meet somebody? Did you catch a meme on Instagram? Like, how'd you do it?
No, I think that poem "I Worried" by Mary Oliver. That's an important piece. Everybody should look at that. We just lost her in the last year, and that was a big loss for writers. Mm-hmm. I think Berlin. I just think the change. I think I love San Francisco. You know, I split my time between San Francisco and Berlin. But I think going to Berlin and, you know, I think anytime I get confronted with a new environment, and especially one where I don't understand the language, you know, it's like, you know, making those new paths and connections and meeting new people and just routines. I mean, all of that stuff starts to rewire my brain a little bit. You know, when I'm having to focus on trying to understand what people are saying as opposed to focusing on things that are already inside of me that I should have let go of, then you get... Yeah, I think it's just natural.
When you come from a different era, as you know, my friends who are 26 and gay now, sometimes when they talk to our older friends who are gay, they can't even comprehend even the concept of cruising to them. They didn't understand why that existed. So I just wondered, on an institutional level, when you go to a place like Berlin where it's been far more accepting for far longer, which would be very surprising to people who think about Germany in only one way.
Yeah, it goes, back to the 1880s, really.
Do you notice it?
Yeah. Well, I live in the gay neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood called Schöneberg, and it's, you know, where Christopher Isherwood set up shop. It was where Marlene Dietrich lived. It was where the El Dorado was, which was, you know, the basis for cabaret. And, you know, it was 80s. It was a big punk rock scene, you know, and, you know, around the Nollendorfplatz, U-Bahn, there was a club called Loft. You know, like Nick Cave was there for a while. Blixa was hanging out, and I still know a lot of the people from that time. Right. And Bowie and Iggy, of course. You know, they lived down on Hauptstrasse, Bel Etage, above what I think is now a store where you go to buy all-size wheels for your street trolley to move your groceries around. So,
I mean, that's amazing.
Very glamorous, right?
That's right.
But it's getting to be a nicer neighborhood. There's a lot of artists moving in over there now. But, It's been great just sort of, you know, diving into the city and getting into, you know, sort of the gay history. You know, I think there's a book, if people are interested, it's called Gay Berlin. And I can't remember the writer's name. I want to say his last name is Beachy. But he outlines the sort of the normalization of homosexuality in Germany. There was a handful of people who were really pushing to get the definition of homosexuality separated from, what do they call people who go after children?
Pedophiles.
Pedophiles, yeah. Because they were sort of linked together, you know, much as centuries ago, barbers and dentists were the same profession in a way. So they would they had these, they would reach out to the police and let them know we're having these big white parties.
Really?
We're having an all-night party, you should come. And they would get a hold of psychologists. You should come and observe and see how we behave. And through doing that, letting the people into the subculture, they eventually were able to normalize their, that subculture. And then by the 20s, the Weimar Republic, I mean, it was, Berlin was incredible.
Yeah.
Until those guys came along, sort of shut the party down for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a real strong, sense of gay history there.
Even though Angela Merkel was opposed personally to same-sex marriage, it's still, she didn't get in the way.
Yeah. I think it was that was probably her personal view, but I think legally she understood that it had to be. It took Germany a long time to get 175 off the books. That was the big one. But yeah, I mean, it's a really great. It's a really great place, and it's funny. I live in the cast around San Francisco, so it's not for a lack of gay in the U.S. either. But it's a different, it's everything. And I was up and down Church Street last night too. So it's like I was staying over in the Village here. So it's
when you think in America, the vice president believes in conversion therapy. Like the vice president in 2019 believes in conversion therapy, and you just look and think, how is this happening? But it's actually not that hard to imagine.
I wonder what his brother thinks. Anyhow.
I bet you he has opinions on that. That's right. Dick Cheney had the same issue.
I'm just like, my God, in this day and age with all of the real problems that we all have to face every day in this world, to still be hung up on this, it's just like, what are you all on about? Come on.
And on an artistic level, I'm really interested in the concept of a kid going to a place where they feel safe, and that's harder to find in some respects than you think. Right?
I think right now we really need to be, as far as the LGBTQ community, we need to be thinking about trans kids. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
The attempted suicide rates in that community are so high that it's a national emergency.
It is, and I think also, because the trans community, there are people of color, and I think for those who have sort of that bigot button, that gets pushed by homosexuality, then when you start adding color, you're pushing two buttons on people at once.
That's why rock stations burn disco records back in the day. It was Hispanic and black men who were gay in New York, and that was it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think to me that's the key thing now is I think trans kids we really need to protect their rights and try to make this easier for them. And it's hard because, now with the internet and, it's, gay neighborhoods are disappearing, because of gentrification and, accumulation of wealth in cities. So when kids leave a small town in Ontario and they come to Toronto, if not for the Village, they have nowhere to go.
Somebody can't afford to live here.
But they need a bookstore to go to. They need a resource center because they're 16 now. They're homeless. You don't want them falling into prostitution, or vice. I mean, these things are really important. So that's what I try to speak toward in the community now. If I have to say anything,
are you finding receptive ears?
I mean, I'm a musician. I travel with other musicians, and I talk to other musicians, and we all know this,
That's right.
In my fan base, I mean, there's people that just, still do that. I don't want to hear about your politics. Shut up and play. I'm like, but do you not listen to the words of my songs?
Well, the answer is no, they don't.
Right. And if they want to, sort of pack it up and take it over to Ted Nugent land, that's cool too. Like, I'm not going to miss them, but.
Right.
Because it's like, did you not get the point of what I'm trying to say here?
Right. Could you have imagined when you were 20 or 22 in the band that this is the life that you'd be leading right now?
Absolutely not. I had no idea where I honestly did not think I would make it past 30.
Sincerely.
In my teens and 20s, as hard as I was burning stuff.
Yeah, did you say in the book that you started like 12, 13 drinking? It was like every night?
13, every day.
I mean, cleaning up is hard when it's practically your whole life.
Yeah, and being in a business that allows you to start first thing in the morning. As long as you're not driving the van,
Right. Right.
You get to sound check. Hey, you want a beer? Right around. Sound guy's 2 hours late. Here, I have a case of beer.
Right.
It's just part of the thing. So that was hard in '86 when I quit. Because it's the environment. It's not, it's not like I was going to meetings or, I had a safe place to talk it out. I was on tour.
Well, a lot of guys I know who go get clean. I quit in '94, but I know guys who do. The rest of the guys in the band don't, and they don't understand it. And so and that's where this enormous divide begins.
Yep. That's definitely with Huskers. That was part of it. I would safely say I lost 90% of my close friends because everything revolved around drinking and music. So then when I just had music and I wasn't going out drinking, then, I was at home.
Was the drinking, was that lifestyle covering up something in your life? Was it addressing things, or was it just fun and it got out of hand?
Learned behavior. I watched my dad do it every day.
Right.
So I did it every day.
And so, you think you're going to now make the 30, and then you get to this age, and you have this body of work, this different kind of work.
Oh my God! Very very grateful I made it. I think as a kid, I loved quadrophenia and the whole sort of romantic notion. Hope I die before I get old, And I was just like, damn, of course I'm going to die before I get old. And it was weird in my 20s because I had the sense to quit drinking, but again, not to go back to everything gay, but, being sort of a really confused young man, having my government tell me that I'm less than and they wouldn't mind if I died anyways. That's not a whole lot of fun.
Willfully ignoring crisis in the country.
Yeah. Reagan with his friends dying around him does nothing until it's already a crisis. Yeah. That was a big mistake.
Do you remember the Academy Awards when the red ribbon went on?
Yeah.
And how big a deal it was that somebody put a red ribbon on. I mean, Liz Taylor's been fighting for this forever, of course.
Yeah, she's an amazing ally.
But just culturally, things as far as we progress in so many areas, and I wonder if you think that at some point where we are with the administration, not just here, because it happens all over the fucking world with this leader. If this is just the George Carlin talked about circling the drain. If this is the last of the generation that's just circling the drain, they're finished, and there's a groundswell of there's all of us allies, who are just like, no, fuck that. Yeah. When they die, it will be better.
It will be better.
Yeah, you believe that?
I think it will be better. It cannot get worse. The problem with politics is it's not a linear thing. It's a pendulum.
Yeah,
it always swings back and forth.
But that's us. That's the people.
And people, and when you get people rabble rousing and they start this, xenophobia, they start this nativism, they start all, dividing people simply because they can only thrive on chaos. Mm-hmm. And if you fall for that, then you become part of the problem. Being part of the solution is to get with people and try to motivate. I think politics is all local. Mm-hmm. I think people have to go to their community board meetings. People need to get involved with their city and town politics.
That's, I think, one of the big things about AOC. She showed the exact path to change.
Yeah.
She was discounted every step of her way.
Yep. There are some radical new voices in the U.S. government now.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think these guys need to be challenged. I think it's like when people, when the young woman from Minnesota stands up and says, you're looking at America now. Get used to it. It's like right on. This is what we were told as kids in America. That we were a melting pot. That everybody was welcome as long as they worked hard. And people who have been coming to this country, coming to America, whether they came across from either side, legally or illegally, they integrate and they work so much harder. Mm-hmm. And they just want to have a safe life, and now to have all of this coming down around them, it's insane.
I'm the first person in my family born in Canada. In my neighborhood, all of my friends in school, we were the first person in our family born in Canada. We're so blessed because of immigration. Wow. Our lives would be different.
And I mean, Toronto's such a talk about melting pot and cultures. I mean, it's incredible here.
We have a nice mosaic here. This country has some real issues, and even the current prime minister has not addressed the crimes against Indigenous people enough.
I remember when Damien had me help out for that track explain the situation. I was ignorant to what was happening, so it was good for him to educate me on that.
And it's coming. Musically, I know you like Fucked Up, but what else do you like musically? What are you listening to?
Right now, new Interpol, new Swerve Driver.
Oh, that Swerve Driver record's so good.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really great. The Janelle Monáe, Dirty Computer, what a great record.
What excites you about a song?
What excites me about a song? When I hear when the voice speaks to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I like big guitars and I like certain type of production. But at the end of the day, it's the stories. I mean, that's what we all do. We have different tools we can use, but we're storytellers.
So I know a person who's a video game designer. When they open up a video game, there's a particular piece of coding they look at and they go, that that right there is the thing that most people wouldn't catch. But that's why this person's special, or for painters. And for you, is there something?
Yeah. Oh, I can deconstruct the production down to the moment that that subtle the subtle shaker floats from right to left in the speaker. Nobody else ever hears it. But if you take it away, everybody go, "What's missing?"
Where do you listen to music the most?
Where do I listen the most?
Yeah.
Probably in my work studio.
Yeah.
I listen on I stream things on the TV, different radio stations. I'm not a Spotify guy. I tried Apple Music and it messed up my library. So I like to. I think all those tools for music discovery are good, but I think I'm the old guy. I think you should still go out and look for music.
Right.
You should connect with people who speak to your community. Like local radios that talks about shows coming to your town, and personalities, things like that. I think that's still really important.
Yeah, that's acting locally.
Yes, it is.
Indeed. A real pleasure, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Is that all? Come on, let's keep going.
Let's keep going if you have time. I have a million other things I want to know about.
Well, sure, let's just grab some B-roll here.
I want to know what tools you have in place when you can see, and you get those red flags going up again, thinking, this isn't good behavior. I'm not feeling good. I'm not whatever. No. What tools do you have to use to get right again?
Go to the gym more. That's like my thing. Yeah. If I start, like the last few months, I've been trying to get in shape. I banged myself up last fall, and then I had to skip the gym for a while. Started putting on weight, and when I don't exercise enough, I get sort of depressed.
Yeah.
So I think just simple things like that, keeping the body moving. I think for me, big things, don't look at the internet first thing in the morning. Don't look at your phone. Don't touch it. Just go.
That's the thing. Don't pick up your phone.
Don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
The difference between the days when I pick up the phone and I look at a news aggregator and I immediately get depressed and the days when I get up and I have my breakfast and I read books about music, it's night and day.
If people do a little digging, we talk about a lack of privacy, we talk about algorithms, but if people do a little digging, we'll tweet it out on our show, just some articles about how intentional the algorithm is to sway behavior, including things like how you feel about yourself, how you go to the gym. Yep. If people really wanted to change things, they'd rise up. Because this is the greatest invasion of all time.
It's unbelievable. I do not know how tech got away with this. You're in
the town where it happens.
San Francisco. I see it every day. I have a lot of friends who are muckety mucks, up at the top of, whatever Algorithm Incorporated.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't seem to think, they think they should have tax-free status. They don't think they should play by society's laws and rules. It sort of reminds me of the church.
Very much so. Very much so. Very much so. The church, at least the church helped the poor.
They did for a long time. The new church, not so much. Old church, they definitely did reach out to community because they needed to keep a core constituency. But as well as I think being benevolent. Tech is pretty crazy.
Are you an angry guy? Do you have anger in you?
Nah, I still get angry about things. I think as far as like tech and stuff like that, I just get frustrated with people not understanding that when free is not free. There's always a price for something. Yeah. And if you don't read the EULA, and you just click the box because you're in a hurry and you needed to download that app to do something, and you give, and it's stripped all your stuff out of your phone, and you wonder why. It's like, well, you're the one that clicked the button because they told you it was free.
I bought an old flip phone, and I went to try to. I tried to. It's an amazing flip phone. I went to like 4 different phone companies to register it. Nobody will register anymore because they say we've retired that technology. It doesn't exist, so I can't even register a phone that doesn't have a lot of the tracking stuff.
I know
that they have today.
And even people can just go into settings and turn stuff off. Turn off the microphone. Well, do you really need to know what that song is all the time? Just like, can't you just go in and turn it on and then turn it off as needed?
That's right.
So I think San Francisco, I've seen it happen. We had a mayor that gave most of downtown to tech for tax-free, and a lot of promises didn't happen that, tech was like, we're going to rejuvenate. No, you just built all the coffee shops and restaurants and gyms inside your building. So all these support systems that were built around ostensibly to pick up your workers on, at lunchtime. None of it worked.
Did they hold that mayor accountable?
He had a heart attack, passed away.
Oh, so was again. That's well.
I think he was a good mayor. I just think it's indicative of this decade.
Yeah, has the horse left the barn on this? Can we reel it in?
Yeah, we can. Again, being in Berlin, and the EU's got much stricter regulations. Every time I go to a website, the first thing that comes up is the cookies warning.
Yeah.
Like every single site without fail, explaining exactly what you're about to give away. In Berlin, along the canal between Kreuzberg and Neukölln, there was a elementary school that took up about a half a block, old building in Berlin. And Google bought the building a few years ago. And they wanted to put a campus there because it's the hippest corner in town. And the neighborhood, everybody started putting posters up. Fuck Google. Last October, they decided, we're not going to put a campus here. We're going to let these Syrian nonprofits take the building.
And they just let them.
They just left, yeah.
Wow.
So it can
Look,
happen.
New York.
People.
Amazon's not building in New York
Long
anymore.
Island City.
Yeah.
That was an amazing move they did, right? The whole dear 120 cities of America, please give us all your demography. So we can sort of tie this on top of our data, and we'll see if we'll give you something.
We're building a Google place here in Toronto.
Oh, down by they're going to build a whole like a incorporated sort of
right. And I was like, are they not teaching 1984 in classes anymore?
Yeah.
Do we not know that this is how it goes?
Yeah. I'm not anti-tech at all. I just think when you asked about anger, I get angry when people don't realize you actually have to put some levers on your behavior.
Right.
Because they're going to get everything. And then, at some point, there's already, like in China, don't they have that whole social credit system? It's
Black Mirror.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Personal accountability, which I think is a difficult thing for people, especially people on the left, to figure out.
Yep.
How to navigate through that.
Yep. It's really true. And the further left we go these days, the further away we go from the center right, who are actually the people that if you just say to them, hey, that guy, this money, this wagging the dog, or whatever, this stuff, you got to watch this. This has happened before. It happened in the last century. Don't let it happen again.
I call it toxic family. It's where people only care about how their kids are raised, not how everybody else's kids. And I kind of look at us who don't have kids and go, oh, we care about all the kids.
Yeah.
Not just one family.
Yeah, and anti-vaxxers.
That's fucking crazy,
What
dude.
is going on? Who thought this was a good idea?
There's a whole measles outbreak that's causing big problems in Canada because one dad read some bullshit online and didn't think, that vaccines were important.
Yeah, and celebrities with voices backing this. What are they thinking? What are they thinking? I've got some deep personal experience with this, and I see what it can do to people. This idea when they start to buy the conspiracy, and how it really can start. It can create like a waterfall of paranoia in people.
You have a history with the anti-vaxxers, or just that idea?
Just with people close to me who believe that stuff, and you're just like, oh my God, you're just going to go right off the waterfall,
right? And you're going to hurt a lot of people potentially.
Yeah, I saw somebody was like, these aren't outbreaks, these are inbreaks.
Oh, fuck off.
Somebody, I'm just like, okay, you ultra liberal, go to hell.
That's right.
Like, what the fuck?
That's right.
Like, what are you saying?
So does that feed into your music? So like after this record, the happy record,
gonna have
call it the Eclipse Rock album where the fucking moon blocks the sun.
Oh my God! I just with this record, I thought it's so obvious what's happening. Why should I reiterate?
Right.
Like if it isn't clear to people what we're in right now, how deep we're in this.
Right.
For me to write angry, protesty, trying to tell people it's like, my God, it's right there in front of you every moment. How do I need to? You surely right. Right.
So if you don't, so one of your mechanisms then for staying happy is to not plug in.
Well, I just did not want to get. I did not want to pay tribute, so to speak, to this administration or this situation.
Right.
I mean, there's hidden allegories in the record. Some are subtle, some are not so subtle. But there's a few songs that are very, very political. But I just did not want to be that guy. Like, I hate this. I mean, I did that in the '80s with some success. And the songs that I used as vehicles back then, I still play those songs. So, they still hold true.
It's sort of comical to me in a tragic way that the modern conservative in America touts Reagan, and you think of all the bands and all the art that was.
Oh my God.
This is not working.
Yeah, not working at all.
Revisionist history.
Yeah, I don't know how we got here. I just don't know how people vote for people who take away all of the safety nets that we try to put in place so that everyone has a chance in society. Like, how do you vote against your own best interests?
Was it a governor in Wisconsin that...
That's where it all started. So, Wisconsin's like the incubator for this nonsense.
Like crushing unions and all that stuff, right?
Yep. Super Fountainhead kind of weird. Yeah,
like read too much Ayn Rand in school. And
totally. That's all those guys. Walker, Ryan, all that. That's their whole MO.
Maybe we should start a movement, but it exists. But let's just shine a light on. Just read better books.
Read better books.
Read better books. If you read better books when you're young, you might actually fucking grow.
Yeah. Well, they killed the poets. Yeah. That was.
But in San Fran, for all the tech stuff, you have Dave Eggers and these really interesting kind of schools they're trying to build, trying to like front schools in a way to try to teach kids better things. So I don't know. Maybe it's happening.
Yeah, I think San Francisco's on the front edge of a lot of that stuff. What was funny is in Germany, I did not realize that homeschooling is not allowed.
Shouldn't be allowed anywhere.
I was just like
I didn't know that.
I was like when I found that out. I think it's true that somebody told me this, and I looked in somewhere. I hope it wasn't Wikipedia or whatever, but. And it seemed to verify, and I was like, "Well, that's really amazing."
Yeah.
And I think that was something that maybe was put in place in the 50s in Germany, and we can't
let this happen again.
Yeah, so I'm just like, wow. And also in Germany, you have to, if you are a religious person, you go to church, you have to register with the state, and you pay an extra tax
to go to church.
Yes. Because
why is that? Yeah,
that money goes into a fund that the government then, I believe, distributes to churches.
All denominations.
So it doesn't go from it's not like a gig where you buy a ticket. There's a middleman. You pay it to the government. The government then decides.
Well,
because they don't have Scientology either. They don't allow that. Not that I have a big pro or con on that one, but
to me, all religions, Scientology, Christianity, Islam, they're all the same to me. All of it's, if you believe in something like that, it's all the same. As an atheist, as a non-theist, I don't ascribe more value to one belief system than another. They're all the same.
I mean, people can believe what they believe, but I was just like, wow, a tax, how novel.
But they struggle with it. I'm sure you see it firsthand as well. There are a lot of people in Germany that don't like the immigration move, so it's not just America that deals with that.
Yeah, and you feel it when you get outside of Berlin because you are still in East Germany, where for a couple generations, Russian was the second language taught, not English.
Wow.
And you see the AfD and now the new party that's even further right of the AfD, and you look around East Germany. And, I read these articles about how the integration wasn't even, West and East in the 90s. It wasn't particularly even. I am not a German. I am just a visitor. So my opinion does not count. But I read these things and I go, of course, this is North-South in the U.S. Right. These are, it's these same kind of stories. We're all together, but we're going to you're going to come a little slower. And then, in 15, the Syrian migration and now Yemeni, and it's a lot to contend with. Yeah. It's a lot. Germany has a system. They're very systematic. So it's it's interesting to be over there right now.
I can imagine. All right, a couple more music questions here before I let you go. Do you have a record player at home?
Yep.
And do you have a couple records that are just always stacked by the record player?
Yep.
Your go-tos?
Yep.
What are they?
Well, I would guess Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper as far as albums. Those are always just sitting right there, whether they're the original ones I had as a kid or the mono remasters or something I picked up in the 90s. It's how many different versions of that.
Do you ever play along?
No, not anymore. I learned all those songs when I was a kid. I down in my workroom, I still have all my 45s that my dad got for me when I was a kid. Wow. And they're literally, I sit at my office desk and I could reach up and grab a single and put it on an old 60s.
What's in them?
What
stuff?
All like Beatles, Beach Boys, Motown, Mamas and Papas, Hollies, The Who, just jukebox singles from 65 through about 70. It was an amazing time for music. I mean, that's the album cover, right?
Yeah,
It's the Capitol Records label.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got Temptations on here.
But yeah, so upstairs I've got a nice, like a Denon, and downstairs I've just got my, I've got like an old mono tube, with the spindle where you stack 5 or 6 and you hope that they fall, or you're just going to sit there and listen to, you're going to sit there and listen to No Time over and over and over and over. Skips in the same spot every time.
So with your ability to deconstruct production, if you put on a Motown, if you put on a Marvin Gaye record or a Temptations record, what are you hearing?
What do I hear?
That we're not hearing.
Well, first thing with music, I mean, even when I go to see a band, first thing is the bass drum and the bass guitar locked together. That's what I listen for in music. When I walk in and I see a show, first thing I look at is the drummer's foot and the bass player's pick or fingering.
Really?
It's like if it's not together, nothing's together.
That's right.
Then after that, I sort of just take in all the different colors. What is the instrumentation? How does the vocalist present the story?
Are you a Stones fan?
Not as much.
Well, because I was going to say that
I'm a Beatles.
It's
no
more
sense.
the guitar was locked in with the drums at that point. Keith, as opposed to the bass players.
Yep. And Charlie, is so fluid. It's just like, it's funny when I see, there's like, you can, when I go to see a band, I can also tell if they've listened to the Stones or whether who they've listened to. You can really, and not so much by like the riffs, but like just how the time moves. If the drummer's following the guitarist, say, it's just a different kind of.
Who's the greatest punk band you ever saw?
Greatest punk band I ever saw. Black Flag with Rollins was pretty great.
Is it just when he joined after Keith left, or into it?
After when Dez went to second guitar, and they were 5, and then Henry came in and it was Dez and Greg on guitar, Chuck bass, Robo, and then Billy, I think, after that. And then Henry was just up front. I mean, his presence was unbelievable. I mean, Black Flag were a good punk band, but Henry made it that experience, and I feel bad he never really got the credit that he did. I think he did, but I don't think he got enough credit.
Now he's sort of reached it. And I'm amazed at how many people have Black Flag tattoos. I saw a book.
Oh my God!
Just on photographs of people with Black Flag tattoos.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And Henry, since that band has just grown as a person and as an activist, and all of the work that he did for so many years that went unnoticed and unsung because it was the real work. All the VA stuff and all the going overseas. And doing trying to take entertainment and stories to people that were overseas, defending America. Yeah. That's really important stuff that he wasn't walking around bragging about that. That's just what he did. That's hard work.
I interviewed him just after Benazir Bhutto was assassinated, and he told me, I was there. He was in Pakistan, and he saw the madness when people started rushing in the street. Yeah. And I was like, of course you were. You're Henry Rollins. Of course you'd be on vacation or in Pakistan.
You're going to be right there because whoever's moving the chess pieces around put you there right at that moment. That's right. I don't ascribe it to religion. It's just, whoever, the great astrologer in the sky.
What did Carlin call it? The big electron.
Yeah.
The big electron.
Yeah, we just sort of get sent to places, and then we're like, why am I going here today? And then, okay, yeah.
Do you ever see a band live and then think, when you were in Husker or Sugar, where you just were like, fuck, they're way better than us? Like, you talked about, you had peers.
Oh, boy. I think personally, the first time I saw Richard Thompson, I was like, ugh, fuck it. Just give up.
Time to retire.
Yeah, give up.
What was it about that performance?
Just the command of the instrument. How he weaves his stories and the music and just technique wise. Watching it, you're just like, forget it. Just forget. Put it down. Yeah. Just let him do his thing.
I talked to a couple guys who saw HR's early days in Bad Brains.
Yeah, I've played with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing band. Personally, can't get behind it.
No, what HR's become, you mean?
No, at the time, we were kind enough to host them, and they left sort of a die faggot die note on the way out.
Yep.
So I don't know if the person who wrote the note has gotten any wiser since. I would hope so. I understand the whole thing, but
They address it in the documentary about a little bit, but not enough.
I walked away after that. It's too bad, but they were an incredible band. But
Did you experience a lot of that?
No, not in the punk scene. I mean, I think it was, the hardcore scene and the punk scene was really about all the misfits, not the band, but just the outcasts. Everybody was welcome if you didn't screw it up. And I think with gay kids, it was more like, don't advertise. If you don't advertise, if you look like us, it's cool, and you're gay, and that's all good.
Yeah. Darby did that in the Germs when we were kids. We didn't know.
Yeah.
And then we find out later, like, okay, well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Or some of the Austin, Texas bands. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I was still so confused. I was still figuring stuff out, so I did not.
But that note doesn't help from the Bad Brains. That note does not help at all.
No, you're just like, fuck those guys. Sad, great, amazing band, influential, but fuck that noise.
Fair enough. Thanks, brother.
All right. Appreciate it. Excellent. We'll stop there.
Yeah, I've heard people